Welcome back, Tank Dell. Preseason game number 2 in the books for the Houston Texans, and they get the win over the Pittsburgh Steelers 20-12. 4 big takeaways in this one coming out of the win over the Steelers. And we start with, I'll say it again, welcome back, Tank Dell. His first action in a game since the Denver Broncos game last year where he broke his leg, and he looks like he hasn't missed a beat. Dell's looked really good in training camp. In his workouts, he's maybe even a little bit faster, and that was a fantastic welcome back party to get him 34 yards on a reception and head into the end zone. Dell did some of the dirty work there at the end, but a great job by C.J. Stroud. And this is indicative of some of the stuff you'll see from C.J. Stroud. We've seen it in training camp a handful of times as well. Go back and watch that play. Things are layered 3 different ways for C.J. Stroud. He's got Tank Dell kind of deep. If you go back and look, Stefon Diggs is open over the middle. He's got open. He's beat his man. In fact, when he sees the ball go to Dell, he does the old touchdown sign. And then Nico Collins was open short on a situation where I would trust Nico Collins to catch the ball and then turn it upfield and get a first down. It was layered really well. It's an excellent play design by Bobby Slowick, and C.J. Stroud made the correct decision. He got a score out of it. I will be interested to watch this offense in 3rd and medium, 3rd and long over the course of the season, how often that turns into a big play, and compare it to some of the other offenses across the league that are supposed to be some of the best offenses in football, because that play very much encapsulates what is potentially the Texans offense on a consistent basis. Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs, and Nico Collins, one of them's open. They're all open. And then C.J. Stroud just got to find out who the most open is and get him the ball, just like he did with Tank Dell in that moment. So great job by C.J. Stroud. Fantastic stuff from Tank Dell. And I'd love to see a little bit of 12-1 in preseason game number 3 for the Texans. And if we don't see that, I'm sure we'll see it week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. Big takeaway number 2, this defensive line. It's got big, nasty potential. Led by, today, Danielle Hunter, who fired off the edge, got the rookie offensive tackle for the Steelers so confused that Hunter then just kind of had to maneuver around him and get a one-arm sack there on Justin Fields. That tackle actually for the Steelers is hurt after the game, and I hope he gets better. But trying to defend Danielle Hunter, that's no easy task. Just ask Blake Fisher, who's had to do it in practice a bunch throughout training camp for the Texans. But Hunter looks really good. He nearly had a sack on the first play of the game, one of those early plays of the game. Justin Fields was able to kind of sidearm that thing out of there and get the ball away from Danielle Hunter. But then you saw the defensive tackles, Foley Fatukasi and Mario Edwards. They're in there at that defensive tackle spot. And man, they are just mean. They're nasty. They turn things into a wall very often. Edwards knifed in there to combine with Jerry Hughes for a sack later on in the game. Fatukasi was blowing things up, stuffing guys for no gain. It was a really solid performance from 4 or 5 guys along that defensive line the Texans are going to rely on. They're going to rely on Fatukasi and Edwards. They're going to rely on, obviously, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson when he gets back from his injury. But even Jerry Hughes looks like he's going to be a very interesting situational pass rusher and situational player for this Texans team, while Danico Autry is serving his suspension for violating the PED policy. And then Derek Barnett, he's played just about more than anybody in this style of defense and the experience, and he's healthy. He's just mean sometimes there at the defensive end spot. So I really liked the performance from sort of that first team and first team adjacent defensive line. Maybe not so much to write home about the depth guys along that defensive line, and figuring out who those guys will be behind Fatukasi and Edwards at defensive tackle. Well, that's not going to be my job, and I don't envy the job that D'Amico Ryan's defensive coordinator, Matt Burke, and general manager Nick Caserio have in trying to figure out who those guys are as well, because there's been a moment here or a moment there for Heinisch or Dave Marcus Harrison, McTelvin Agam, a variety of different players there at defensive tackle. But I really, really like the potential of this defensive line. And as I talked about with my good friend Landry Locker of the Locker Room right here on YouTube when we were live during the game here on YouTube, there's a potential that the defensive ends are actually better than the wide receivers when things are all said and done. Danielle Hunter has Defensive Player of the Year potential for this Texans team. Just think about it. He was really, really good last year. What if he's even better? That's Defensive Player of the Year. Might even get an MVP vote or two if that's the case with Danielle Hunter's potential improvement for this Texans team. Hey, the Red Hats are in stock in the link in the description down below. You've been asking for red Houston football hats. Well, you got red Houston football hats. You can pick them up. $20 plus shipping and handling. I package them up right here at the desk. Put your name on the outside, put your hat on the inside, send it off at the post office. You'll love it. You will love the red hats, and maybe you don't want a red hat. Maybe you want a blue hat. Oh, we got the blue ones too. Certainly looks like a little, color familiar to Houston every now and then, don't you think? I mean, we got the blue hats for you as well. You can pick up one of each of the hats, and if you pick them up together, you get a $3 discount. That's right. You get a $3 discount that automatically applies at checkout when you put both these hats in your cart. Link in the description down below. Pick up a hat. Keep the sun out of your face. Cover up your bad hair day or your bad hair or whatever. Just enjoy the hats. Thanks for supporting the channel. Appreciate you. Big takeaway number 3 on this one. Cam Akers is a factor in this running back room. He might be the running back that you need to trust on the depth chart behind Joe Mixon. He ended up with over 40 total yards, spread out about 9 touches or so, had a couple of nice runs, obviously can catch the ball out of the backfield. He showcased that in the first preseason game, and he showcased it in this one. And yes, the blocking wasn't great for Dameon Pierce, but there hasn't been a lot that I can point to and say, man, Dameon Pierce has done that really well, or Dameon Pierce has done this really well. The blocking wasn't good for one of Cam Akers' rushes, and he made guys miss and turned nothing into something. Now, it was a short gain, but Cam Akers is a guy that I believe the Texans can trust. He's finding himself in the conversation for a depth spot in the running back room, and I just don't feel super comfortable with Dameon Pierce as running back 2 on this team. And look, a healthy Joe Mixon, you won't need running back 2 a whole lot. The second guy in carries on the Bengals last year, Chase Brown, he had 44 carries, okay? So there may not be that many times that you need to put Dameon Pierce on the field, or Cam Akers if he's the backup on the field, or Dare Ogunbowale on the field. But when you put that backup out there, you need to trust them, and you need to have an expectation that they can execute the way that this offense needs to be executed. Dare Ogunbowale has looked better than Dameon Pierce in training camp. To my eyes, Cam Akers is coming up fast behind both of those guys. It is not going to be super easy to figure out what that running back depth chart ultimately is going to look like. Jawar Jordan had a couple of nice rushes in this game, including a 10-yard scamper at one point. So it's not going to be easy to figure out exactly what to do at running back. And there's not going to be a lot of options outside the building that you're going to want to just plop in there in the depth chart right away come cut down day. I don't really want to use a late round draft pick in a trade if I'm Nick Caserio. So it's becoming more and more difficult to just know that Pierce is the 2 in the 1-2 punch that is Joe Mixon and the backup running back in Texans team. Also, think about this. Joe Mixon, he might not even, his injury might have allowed Cam Akers this opportunity to be on the team. There's an alternate universe where Joe Mixon maybe never gets hurt and Cam Akers maybe never gets the opportunity to be on the Texans. Think about that. I do know this. At one point, Cam Akers touched the ball 6 times in one drive. He had the kickoff return, he had a couple of catches and a couple of runs in a scoring drive for the Texans, and they clearly are trusting him with something in this offense. Is it going to be running back 2? I don't know if it's fully, totally, wholly going to be running back 2, but Cam Akers is certainly getting more and more and more from this offense. Finally, our 4th big takeaway, man, that wide receiver competition continues to get muddy I mean, it is lacking clarity to figure out who the number 5 and who the number 6 wide receiver are going to be for this Texans team. We know 1 through 3, the big 3. We know about Noah Brown as the 4th, but who's number 5? Who's number 6? And you may hopefully not need to use those guys that much, but it is important to make sure that should you need to put the 5th or 6th wide receiver on the field or use them for special teams, that you can trust them to execute that. Robert Woods was the top standout this week. He had a good couple of practices in Cleveland, including one of the best plays while the Texans practiced in Cleveland. I was there, watched it. He cut it right through the middle on a nice 40-something yard, 30-something yard, 35, let's call it 35-yard touchdown catch and run from C.J. Stroud. And then he looked really good in this one. Had back-to-back plays that set up Daria Gumbawale's rushing touchdown. Woods has still got a little something left to his game. The guy's competing with Robert Woods for that spot. Ben Skoranek, he had a drop. Xavier Hutchinson, he had a drop. John Mechie, he had a drop. The Texans preach stacking days. That's exactly what Robert Woods did this week. He had good practices. He had a good game. That's not what John Mechie has done for this team. John Mechie's done it in the reverse. He had drops in practices. He had drops in the games. I mean, it's been tough sledding for Mechie. You saw Xavier Hutchinson get used on that rushing play. Bobby Slowick loves to use him on that little end around. They like getting the ball in his hands, just letting them see what he can do running with the football. Ben Skoranek obviously has a ton of special teams usefulness. It's starting to get very difficult to see how John Mechie is going to be able to make this team. Now, you might get a tiny bit of a reprieve from having to play special teams if a guy like, say, Tank Dell is going to take over some special teams reps, which, by the way, how about Tank Dell setting up his own touchdown with his punt return? Isn't that fantastic, right? His punt return helped set up his own touchdown. Yeah. But if Dell's going to take some of those reps, and maybe you're going to use some other starters or top of the depth chart guys, you could maybe justify not playing as much special teams on a couple of spots up and down the roster, but it may be the tiebreaker, and that may go against John Mechie. Xavier Hutchinson, Ben Skoranek, Robert Woods, they're all ahead of John Mechie for me on this roster. It may be time to see John Mechie in another uniform to see if that potential can pay off somewhere else. But, hey, there's still time. There's a handful of practices. There's another preseason game. There's joint practices against the LA Rams. Then there's a final preseason game. Time is not over, and the decisions have not been made at wide receiver. But, man, Mechie has got some making up to do for this team if he wants to make it on that 53-man roster. What say you? What were your big takeaways in this game? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate you watching the live stream with the Locker Room and Landry Locker during the game. If you missed some of that, there's some fun moments. Go back, flip the game on, flip us on, watch it back again. That's a fun one. Don't forget to visit our friends at draftkits.co, draftkits.co. I'm actually headed to Dallas to draft with my fantasy league. The 15th year we've been drafting. We've got ourselves a Draft Kits customized draft board. It's as big as my bed. That's right. It's as big as my bed. I can't wait to start sticking and picking those draft picks. Oh, man, it's going to be good. Get you a customized draft board at draftkits.co, draftkits.co. Everything you need to know in the link in the description down below. And, oh, by the way, 10% off with my code CODY24, CODY24. Super easy. Get you a great customized draft board. Take your draft to the next level. DraftKits.co. Appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.